Okay, so now we're at this section, compatibilism, aka self-determinism, section 2.8. Here again, you'll have multiple choice, true, false. As with the other theories, you need to know what the compatibilist generally thinks about determinism, acting freely and moral responsibility. This means that you need to know what generally the compatibilist thinks about the principle of universal causation, what he or she thinks about free and unfree action. So how would a compatibilist define a free action and an unfree action? What are some examples that are given by the author in the reading? That is going to connect to what you need to know about internal versus external causes. So again, how are these terms, internal cause and external cause, defined in your book? What kinds of examples are given? And given all that you've read, including the examples and explanation, so when fleshing out these ideas, Lawhead does give you some examples, and you want to think about how those examples show you how a compatibilist would explain criminal behavior. You might even, for this particular theory, want to look at the thought experiment in the Peach text box. And I'll show you what I'm talking about there in a minute. And then Stace was an author that was highlighted in your reading, and you want to know and study Stace's original examples of free and unfree actions, decisions, or choices. So that is here in this section 2.8, compatibilism, aka self-determinism. Give me a second to adjust my screen. Okay. There's some helpful information here on page 155. So this is 155. You get a really good reminder here of what soft compatibilism is. That is a reminder of what was covered in the introductory section 2.5 in terms of this problem of freedom and determinism. So make sure you start off with this paragraph. Definitely take note of this paragraph for the big ideas, the big themes. Then continue to read through here. Definitely, this is where you're going to find the information that you need for the definitions and examples having to do with free, unfree, internal, and external actions, causes, and whatnot. So make sure you take careful note of how all of those terms are connected to each other. Then you should definitely read through all of these items to understand the full implications of the definition. So even though here you do get the definitions, and you may get test items that look for just your ability to remember or find or recall, the name for a definition or the definition for the name of a concept. There will be items that do test to make sure that you really do understand the definition, how it works, and hence the position of compatibilism. And so reading carefully through the paragraphs that follow this one, where there's a lot of definitions, you want to make sure you read through these examples, these explanations, to make sure you understand the full implications of the definitions and hence the definitions given and hence the theory. This is the Peach text box. Maybe it's rust or terracotta. I was saying that you might want to read through this thought experiment and think about how you can do a similar thought experiment for a criminal that engages in some kind of illegal activity or wrongful behavior, and then read through this explanation or discussion of Lawhead's in terms of what he says the compatibilist might say about the scenario, the agent, the person in the scenario, and think about how that might apply to explaining criminal behavior. But again, all of this is going to really provide insight necessary for doing well on that part. This as well, make sure you read through this, take note of the full implications of what the compatibilist thinks. Okay, so then you got the Lawhead highlighted this guy named Stace. So go ahead, and review what Stace had to say. You don't need to worry about his life or his background right there. But look at what Stace has to say that will reinforce to you what a compatibilist think. You'll get this particular one. So this part is not so important right here, so don't worry about that. Do study this part right here, and then what some examples that Stace gives of free acts and unfree acts. So those are examples taken from Stace's original text. I think Generally, I have told you you don't need to pay attention to stuff that has a blue line or that's original text in terms of, getting correct answers and getting the gist or whatever. But this is definitely one that you're going to want to study. So read this paragraph, look at Stace's examples of free acts and unfree acts, and then study very carefully how Lawhead explains Stace's categorization of the actions, choices, and decisions into the separate columns. At this point, you might be able to say, oh, yeah, I can see why Stace would call this a free act since he's a compatibilist. Oh, yeah, I can see why he would say this is an unfree act. But just to make sure, because, of course, this is a new course to you and possibly a new subject, and you're just now hearing of Stace and his idea of compatibilism. You're just now hearing of compatibilism as a metaphysical theory. Make sure that you still read through Lawhead's explanation of why Stace would, categorize things as he does here, just to make sure you really do have a clear, accurate, precise understanding. Do I want to say anything else about this? That's pretty much it. Definitely why not go ahead and reread these paragraphs just to make sure you fully understand, and then that's all you really need to focus on for this part of the test.